Since time immemorial, the magnificent Northern California landscape has been the homeland to many tribes. Under the watchful gaze of the towering sisters, Mount Shasta, Yetaku, and Mount Lassen, Yatichana, tribes such as the Pit River, Wintu, and Yana lived in harmony with their ancestral lands.
Nam, Uwat Hayam Chenu, Huiram, Yamarhat Take.
The land was bountiful, with great supplies of deer, salmon, and acorns, providing all that the people needed. Each tribe was distinctive, with their own traditions, beliefs, art, and language. They also had their own governments and established relationships with other tribes, ensuring respect for tribal boundaries and hunting grounds. In the early 1800s, the westward expansion of the United States severely affected the tribes of Northern California. Masses of settlers, or Niladui, invaded their homeland, bringing unfamiliar customs and disease. Entire families, and in some cases, entire tribes, were wiped out. In 1848, gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill, starting the California Gold Rush and bringing catastrophic changes to the Indian way of life. Rivers and creeks became polluted, destroying fish habitats as miners washed entire hillsides into the waterways, searching for gold. Ranchers claimed vast expanses of land to be their own, building miles of fences to keep their cattle in and the tribes out. Political affairs were confused and chaotic at the time. There were no governmental regulations to ensure the proper treatment of the Native Americans. This resulted in countless atrocities being committed against the Indian people. In 1850, California became a state. One of the legislature's first decisions was passing the Act for the Government and Protection of the Indians. Although offered as a means to protect Indians, this act lawfully allowed whites to place Indian men and women into indentured servitude, and women and children to be stolen and sold as brides or slaves.
I guess the things I can remember that Grandma talking about was that her mother and her mother's sister were picking berries over in probably late summer. I guess they were young women or young girls, probably 15, 16 or whatever, and they were taken by two white guys, sheep herders, and then they were taken to Pasquena, and then they eventually married them. That's how my grandmother came from that area. So. But they just stole them, I guess.
My grandmother, she was our original distributee, Mildred Amelia Philpott Rhodes. Her Wintu name was Shada, which meant a valley strewn with strong oaks. And she come from Winnemem people on her mother's side, Oriole people on her father's side. Her great-great-grandmother was Mary Crockett, who was purchased out of indentured servitude by a Caucasian male when she was 14 years old and he was 34. He paid her fine of, I think, $18 and got a wife.
In addition to permitting forced labor, the California state government officially sanctioned the genocide of Native American tribes. In his 1851 message to the California legislature, Governor Peter Burnett stated, "A war of extermination will continue to be waged between the two races until the Indian race becomes extinct." Rewards were offered for the scalps of Indian men, women, and children. Entire tribes were massacred through organized hunting parties and ambushes.
When they were massacring people along the Sacramento River, which is the Yana people in the southern part of the Sacramento River, the Yanas would escape if it was at night. And in this case, one father grabbed one of his girls and they swam across the river, and then they fled into the Pit River territory and married into my mother's family. That's why they're Yanas. Nobody talked about it because they were afraid somebody to come and massacre them. You know, if they were all being destroyed and killed, well then you just didn't talk about it.
Killings on this scale were unprecedented within tribal history. 2/3 of the population were wiped out, and the tribes of Northern California were on the brink of extinction. Those who survived became homeless in their own homeland, living only in places the white settlers did not want. The federal government began to recognize the plight of the Indian. In an effort to offer protection, agents from the state were authorized to make treaties. Unfortunately, many of these treaties were never ratified by the federal legislature, and promises made to the Indians were neglected or broken. Confusion and disagreement between the federal and state governments continued. Indians tried to comply with regulations, however, they could not rely on unity from these governments. In the late 1880s, the federal government took action to refocus Indian policy away from extermination and toward teaching them to fit in within the white culture. In order to do this, a system for federal Indian schools was instituted. This resulted once again in children being taken from their families. They were sent to far-off regions, supposedly to be taught English and vocational trades. Instead, girls were taught to be house servants and boys taught to be farm hands. In order to strip students of their culture, they were given new, civilized names, had their hair cut, and were dressed in uniforms. They were strictly forbidden from practicing their own spirituality or speaking their native languages.
If they were taken out of the home, then they no longer spoke the language because they were prohibited from speaking it. And so it was lost.
For the next 40 years, the Northern California Indians tried to coexist with white inhabitants. Many of them gathered to fish for salmon in Clear Creek and lived a communal life. In an effort to group what they considered to be homeless Indians into one manageable location, the Department of the Interior began considering options to buy land for a reservation. In looking at the piece of property that would eventually become the Redding Rancheria, a noted advantage was that it was bordered by the creek, a canal ditch, and the main highway. A letter to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs outlines that this would prevent bootleggers, undesirables, and white gamblers from mixing up with the Indians. The tract of land consisted of 30.89 acres south of Redding, California. This was a very small parcel of land for tribal peoples who had once called the entire Northern Valley home.
The Redding Rancheria is 3 different tribes in one. It's Yana, Pit River, and Wintu. So what the Rancheria, when it was originally established in the 20s, was for homeless Indians. This piece of land was bought by the federal government, and it was set aside for homeless Indians. So those different tribes all settled here, different families.
My grandmother was the first one on this flat. 1922, they put this into use, and she was the first one to get on here.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs was obligated to establish and maintain a domestic water system and provide a road and housing. However, they only built a handful of substandard houses and failed to fulfill the other obligations.
Of course, we built onto the house that was originally there, because there was only 2 little rooms. They were about 12 by 12 each room. And I guess you're supposed to eat in one, cook in the other. That's the way I saw it, you know.
Up until probably 1958, we didn't have indoor plumbing or running water in the house. And so when you took baths, we had a concrete, like a square tub with a faucet in it, and that's where you derived your water from.
Tastes terrible. That was the worst thing, because we boiled our water, and then of course we didn't have any electricity, so we used wood for heat, wood for cooking, and that means we chopped wood continually.
In the 30s, during the Roosevelt administration, federal Indian policy had swung in the direction of favoring or enhancing tribal sovereignty and self-determination. It was part of the Indian New Deal. And the idea was that the federal government should encourage and promote Indian communities as separate communities so that they could exercise some level of self-determination over their own lives, and through that they could improve their lives. Congress began to question whether tribal sovereignty was the way to go, or whether they should try to assimilate Indians into the larger white society. So there was a movement starting in the very early 50s to terminate Indian communities, terminate the federal relationship with Indian communities, remove the federal protection for Indian communities that existed before that in certain areas, California, New York, Florida being the primary focus of those efforts.
That was the termination policy of the federal government. They just terminated all the rancherias.
And what did that mean?
It means you were no longer an Indian, and your land wasn't in trust. You were same as everybody else. You weren't Indian anymore.
Once the rancheria was terminated, what they did is they actually subdivided the rancherias. They would file a record of survey map creating individual parcels. Prior to termination, the rancherias were one whole piece of land that was owned by the United States in trust for the whole tribe. After the Rancheria Act, they subdivided the rancheria into separate parcels. They would deed the parcels to individual members of the tribe, heads of households, and then those individuals would have legal title to their property, but they would also be subject to all these requirements, including property taxes. So then the property owner was sitting there with a piece of land, but under the now applicable county regulations, they couldn't develop the land. They couldn't put a septic system on there and a well that would allow the property to actually be used. So they couldn't live on it, they couldn't sell it, they couldn't generate any income off it, and they were unemployed and couldn't afford the property taxes.
Under the California Rancheria Act, the federal government still had an obligation to complete construction and improvements, to bring roads up to standards, and to rehabilitate domestic water systems. The act also offered special programs of education and training.
The BIA had a relocation policy that they actually adopted as part of the Rancheria Act, which actually relocated people from the rancheria into cities where they would either get into some job training program or something like that, and they would never get back to the rancheria after they were relocated. The accumulation of all these impacts was to essentially cause these communities to disintegrate.
Seen different people who came and went during the termination period there in the 50s. Some people left and sold their property or lost it for tax reasons, and there was some changes there. Like I say, a lot of the people, majority though, did hang on and stay here. Those who stayed and kept their lands were able to put it back into trust.
In time, tribes began to use the same legal system that once discriminated against them as a tool to challenge the federal government's actions. Because the federal government did not provide adequate water and road systems as required by the California Rancheria Act, the tribes claimed they were not legally terminated. The landmark case regarding this matter, Tilly Hardwick versus United States of America, is a case that directly affected the Redding Rancheria.
It sought to set aside those terminations and restore federal recognition for those Indian communities. It resulted in a judgment for 17 of those communities that were restored and regained their federal recognition.
As one of those 17 tribes, the original landowners of the Redding Rancheria were once again recognized as Indians.
There were what were called original distributees, which were the people who were originally here at that time, make up the core of the Redding Rancheria. So for instance, my grandfather was an original distributee, so any of his descendants become members of the tribe.
They were now federally recognized tribes again, and that they had a government-to-government relationship with the United States. So we restored their status as a federally recognized tribe. That was probably the most important thing, as it turns out.
Reinstating their sovereignty did not automatically reverse the impacts of a history filled with hardship.
The relationship between Indians of the Redding Rancheria and the larger community was very bad. The Indians were looked down on. They were kind of the discriminated against and minority in that area. They had a higher unemployment rate than the general population, lower educational achievement, higher number of people that have been incarcerated, all of those kind of things, drug and alcohol problems.
In addition to dealing with these external perceptions, reestablishing internal tribal government structures was not an easy process.
Nobody knew what the hell a constitution was. I mean, really, to put one together was difficult. And my dad called Barbara Murphy. She was living in Canada, actually, and told her she should come down, give us a hand, and get this thing going, that sort of a speech. And Barbara did.
We had no guidelines. They just weren't there, And we had to look for this and that from different tribes. And, we had to get together, trying to make up a pact of our own, which is eventually turned into our Constitution that rules here, the rules and regulations are here.
After 2 years of hard work, a constitution was adopted by the people in 1987. Finally, a governmental structure could be put in place to administer tribal affairs and improve economic and social conditions for all members of the Rancheria. Although they hardly had enough funding from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to run their government, the tribe pushed forward in addressing some of their most pressing concerns. On the forefront of Indian issues at the time was a lack of adequate health care.
The tribe's philosophy around its health care was very important, and in fact they negotiated the agreement to get a self-governance compact and take over the health care services before they began negotiations on a casino. So the tribe really felt like health care was a huge priority, and they needed to start there to make sure their people are getting the best care that they can. And we've continued to do that. We have some of the best doctors and physicians.
Another example of the tribe's resolve came in the form of members taking joint responsibility for providing the road and water system that had so long been neglected by the federal government. By securing funds from Indian Health Services, the tribe was able to drill new wells and construct a new watering system to serve community homes and tribal offices.
Anyway, it was not very good to drink. Wasn't good to drink to start with, but I think they dug another well a little bit deeper, but that didn't do any good, so they moved down here to the middle of the place and built this in here, and I think that in there runs down 196 feet. And then that's where they got the methane gas, I guess, started coming through. They shut it down.
With little funding, the Rancheria continued to work on improving conditions for their people. In 1988, Congress had passed the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. This act was intended to make it possible for tribes to have revenue resources to be able to further develop their sovereign independence. Building a casino was not an easy decision to make. The tribal government deliberated over issues such as potential liability and future legislation. The casino had to be built on trust lands, So there was also a question of where to build on the 30 acres. Someone would have to give up their home.
My dad is Art Hayward, and he lived where the casino is, right on the bank. And so, I mean, on the hilltop, and the creek was pretty much like this. And when he gave his land up, you know, he was proud to do it. He knew he had more of a inside of things. He told me a long time ago this was going to be something. We had no clue, honestly. We were just trying to do our best. But before he died, he told me, he goes, you know, this is going to grow. This is going to be big.
In 1993, Redding Rancheria opened Wind River Casino Bingo. In order to do this, the tribe secured a loan of $1.2 million. Although it had been difficult, the decision proved to be a good one. The loan was paid in full within 17 months from the casino's opening.
So 2 years into the 5-year deal, we were owning and operating our facility that we have 14 years later.
The casino has developed into a very successful business, becoming an economic boon to the people of both the Redding Rancheria and the surrounding community.
I've been down here my whole life. I was born from the hospital and brought down here, and I've lived here for the past 20 years on this land. There's been a lot of changes and a lot of different things that have gone on, but it's all for the better, and I only see us getting better, you know, or going more places, so it's nice.
I saw a lot of change from the time that I grew up down here to current times. I always tell the story that my best friends that lived at the end of the road, how hard it was for them prior to the casino coming, and I've seen it take them out of a state of and not being unhealthy or anything, but just having a better life compared to what it was.
Well, since I've been enrolled, I have 5 children, and so since I've been enrolled here at the Redding Rancheria, it's really given me a lot of stability in raising my kids, that's for sure.
They put in roads, you know, that were better than the county standard roads, curb gutter, sidewalk, street lights. They just improved the physical conditions on the rancheria dramatically.
I think one of the things the casino has done for the tribal members itself is be able to institute programs that support them in all different kinds of areas of their life. The biggest and most important one that I have seen come to fruition would be the education programs. Our kids and adults alike are able to go back to college or go to college, and there's support there for them to get any kind of degree they want to. We have from pilots to lawyers to everything in between that have graduated and gone on to get higher education, which has been a great positive impact for the tribe.
I have a degree in business, and the rancheria assisted me in going to school and getting that education. And then from there, you know, it's a lot easier to make those decisions if you have some background. And they're really supportive of any kind of dreams that a member has. You know.
The educational level in that community has dramatically improved. The health conditions that they live in have dramatically improved. All of that's the result of the casino. But it's done a great deal more than just, in my opinion, it's done a great deal more than just make their material lives better. It's given them self-respect, and it's given them respect in the community, and it's changed the whole relationship between that Indian community and the larger Shasta County community.
In keeping with the native tradition that prosperity is shared, the tribe uses federal grants along with its own resources to provide community service programs. For example, in order to meet the ever-present health needs of the Indian community, the health clinic provides full-spectrum family care, including well child care and immunizations for all ages. The rancheria also provides for elders of the community by offering a senior nutrition program. The staff for this program not only supplies nutritious food, but also feeds minds with a variety of fun and entertaining activities. In addition, the tribe is able to support the children of the community through their Head Start program. which has recently been nationally recognized for excellence. Head Start provides a wonderful environment for not only teaching youngsters the normal curriculum for preschool, but also for sharing cultural traditions like storytelling.
Why did kick baby eagle out of the nest again? Kick him down out of the nest.
The Redding Rancheria is also one of the largest employers in Shasta County, providing work for hundreds of employees.
You know, I think the tribe's philosophy from the very beginning was they didn't want to be an employer where you couldn't really make a living. So in 1991, our lowest starting wage was $8 an hour, which was significantly higher than the minimum wage. And the council felt really strong about that, and that philosophy followed and has still. We offer so many benefits and a 5% retirement match that is pretty lucrative as far as this area goes. Very good benefits, vacation, our workplace values are, you know, really great to work here.
We have people that honestly and truly care, you know, and I've worked all my life and I've never worked around that kind of an atmosphere that was that high, you know. They really care.
The Redding Rancheria is proud to share its success by being one of the largest contributors to local businesses, charity organizations, and initiatives. Over the past few years, the Rancheria has reinvested millions of dollars into surrounding communities through charitable and sponsorship donations. A lot of hard work and dedication has given the tribe and its membership the resources to help the Redding Rancheria grow and secure a solid future. Maintaining this security will require focus and planning in two key areas, both political and financial. Activism has been an important part of tribal involvement for many years and will continue to be so in the future.
My grandma, she was a little woman, probably not even 5 foot, but she was rough. She fought and fought for a good 40-some years of her life. They were fighting with the Pit Rivers to help regain the ancestral land of the Pit River people. She sat on all kinds of boards and everything, and even up to her, when she was dying, she was fighting for Indians.
The purpose of CNIGA is to have a strong voice and a strong body that's to keep up with the politics in the state, to keep abreast of any bills what may be harmful to us, and also it's on a national level also with the National Indian Gaming Association to keep up with the federal laws and anything that they're trying to do harm to Indian people. And so we're there to help lobby and to fight for our cause.
It didn't occur to me early on, and now I know that it's ongoing. Every session of Congress, every new legislator that's elected, every new business we open, every day is a challenge, whether it's about our sovereign rights as an Indian nation, whether it's about our ability to conduct our own tribal court, to pass our own laws. There's always somebody out there who is challenging what we're doing. And so it's an endless and tireless battle, I think. It's exhausting if you think about every day when you come to work, when you get on the internet, when you read your updates, there's always something new out there. So, you know, I think it's about keeping up the energy and fighting the battles and knowing which ones and when to fight them. And so I think it's something that will be there forever. It'll be there for my children to fight and their children to fight. So it's just ongoing.
Financially, the tribe understands the need to invest in other business to sustain its programs for the future.
When the casino became successful, the tribe was able to diversify our economic funds. That's what we like to say we're doing. And because we know the challenges that face us continually, and we're not sure where the future of gaming is, you know, the wisdom of our elders way back when, in the beginning, said, you know, we might not be able to do this forever, and so we need to do something else.
In 1995, the Rancheria established the Redding Rancheria Economic Development Corporation, or REDCO.
It's a tribal corporation, which is very different from a C corporation or a lot of other corporations out there. A tribal corporation is formed by the tribe, and it's similar to a state, has the authority that the states would normally have for state corporations. So we set that up, and that was a board was set up for it to look at various investments that were presented to them. I was the president of REDCO, and we would look at, we'd basically get out there and be like an investment firm. Look at, go out there and talk to various companies, businesses, see what, if they had anything that they might want to sell, or land that potentially could be developed into something else.
We set aside significant portions of our revenues from the casino to go out and get into other business ventures. Our tribe over the last several years has built a Hilton Garden Inn hotel. We've opened the Wind River Mini Mart, and we own a moving and storage company business in Sacramento. So we've sort of just did what we said we were going to do. We were trying to diversify and get into different fields so that our tribal self-reliance would continue on in the future.
In order to make the developments necessary to ensure the long-term security of the Rancheria's members, land is needed. The Rancheria is actively buying back land that had once been the ancestral territory of their tribes.
Now we have lots of opportunity and lots of choices. So in the beginning, it was probably us out looking for something to do. Now we have so many opportunities in front of us, it's about picking the best ones.
But we are currently in the process of doing another expansion. And that expansion will take us through the next 10, 15 years of the current California Compact. That expansion includes a hotel, includes a parking structure, includes more food amenities, and includes a much greater entertainment facility than we have today. We'll be able to seat over 2,000 people in this future plan. If everything goes right, we'll be sticking the shovel in the ground again.
The Redding Rancheria is nurturing a new heritage of economic success, so future generations will never have to endure the hardships of their ancestors. Tribal members understand the importance of honoring the past while handing down tribal traditions and responsibilities from generation to generation.
Everything has a life, including rocks, trees. Everything has a spirit. We're just a part of that. We're no better, no less. And if you somehow disturb that or mess with it or not take care of it the proper way, then you upset everything.
Tribal responsibility for proper care includes an obligation to be involved in the protection of sacred sites, such as the successful protection of Mount Shasta and the continued struggle to protect Medicine Lake. It also involves ongoing work toward the repatriation of ancestral remains. An example is the joint effort of the Redding Rancheria and Pit River tribes to bring home the remains of Ishi, who was believed to be the last of the Yanayahi. The tribe is dedicated to their youth by ensuring that they know who they are, by instilling their tribal traditions, customs, and ancestral languages, while also making sure they have the tools necessary to succeed in their contemporary communities. By developing their young, the Redding Rancheria is ensuring that the flame of their unique cultural heritage and spirituality is kept alive. In passing down these traditions, the tribe will rekindle the fire in honor of their ancestors before them, their people today, and generations yet to come. By being self-governing and building and continuing self-reliance, the tribe has come full circle. The inner strength and sacrifices of their ancestors is recognized and respected by the tribal members of today. The same determination will be needed to ensure continued success for the future.
As the casino grows more and more, I can see it just being a benefit, not only just to, tribal members, yes, and I treat them with respect, and I think they deserve it. They've earned it, and they need to be looked at as community leaders now. Not just so much, yeah, they work at the casino, they get all this free money. Well, it hasn't been free. It's been worked for. It's been hard work. It's been a lot of hours working. But I see the leadership that I get from our general manager and my director. That's the point is they never talk about me or I. It's always about the tribe and the business, and that's why the success is so great for everyone, because you have people in leadership roles that aren't selfish and think about themselves. They're always thinking about the tribe.
When you talk of responsibility, I think it's a responsibility to let the younger people know where we came from and who we are, and to thrive and make use of these gaming dollars that we have, because the education opportunities are endless for them, and the opportunity to go and see this world and see how other people are, and realize what a great thing it is that we have, and to make the most of it, and to prepare our grandchildren, and hopefully we can continue on to tell them where we came from.
If we think about the future, to me it's about healthy and balanced families. It's about self-reliant members. It's about honoring and listening to the wisdom of our elders. We always say that everything we do is for our children or for the 7th generation. And so I think if everything we do and all of the decisions that we make, keep that in mind, and keep in mind that it's not for the benefit of me today. It's about leaving behind something for the future of our children.
Now that we've kept our tribe going, we can look to the future, but we have to look to the future by looking into the past. Grandfather, hear the voice of my heart today. To all my relations, we were born to the people of this land, above this beautiful creek called Clear Creek. Creator, you blew life into the spirit of our tribe, and our history will be written upon this creek. Our tree of life was planted here, and like the tiny ripple in the water, it grows and grows. I will always sing to the spirit of this creek. This beautiful creek was my health and my paradise as a child, and the salmon were so thick in the water. Now I realize the waters need help, and with your blessings, let me answer that call. Let me rise above the adversity, and to be there to fight when the ancestors cry out from their resting place. Te Watu Alo, the umbilical cord that connects us to our mother and to our Mother Earth and our universe, remains connected and flexible and shall never be severed. Grandfather, we will count your blessings through our children. Your blessings are many, and we shall be one, and so our spirits will forever dance upon this land. All my relations.